Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So moving forward now, what's going to happen is that we mentioned in the previous lesson that one verb may have more than one meaning, and each meaning may have its own masdar. What he's discussing here is now a few masadir which have general rules. And I approximately, I can't remember how many, but about, he has, how many? I think about eight. He has 8 masdars, or 8 patterns. And he then, this ta'yin, and he analyzes them and he says, well, this masdar usually has this meaning or these few meanings. So a general rule of thumb by which you can understand the context of the meaning of that word. So the first pattern he discusses, or the first 2 he discusses, is fa'lun and fu'ulun. Again, these are all mujarrad masadir, because the mazid fi masadir are fixed. Arsala yursilu irsal, it's only irsal, no other masdar. But the mujarrad have various masadir. So these masadir have certain general rules. So the first rule he mentioned is that the masdar of a fa'l muta'addi, which is ثلاثي, is fa'lan, generally speaking. Okay, so generally speaking, if you have a fa'l muta'addi, and it comes with which pattern? It's a muta'addi and it's ثلاثي. Generally speaking, the masdar will be fa'lan. ضرب يضرب ضربا فتح يفتح فتحا سمع يسمع سمعا. So fa'lan is usually and generally the masdar of ثلاثي mujarrad words when they have a muta'addi and a transitive meaning. Simple. أكل يأكل أكلا فهم يفهم فهما. He says, however, and this we discuss later on, this rule here, if this word is ثلاثي, is mujarrad, and it shows and it's muta'addi, ثلاثي mujarrad and muta'addi, but it shows a profession, it wouldn't come a fa'lan pattern. That's going to be number 2 pattern he discusses. For example, saqa yasqi saqyan. So saqa yasqi, if you mean that you were thirsty, individual, and I gave you water to drink, you will say saqaytuka saqyan. Saqaytuka, I gave you something to drink. And the masdar of this saqa would be saqyan. However, if you have the word saqa in the meaning of a profession, like for example, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and as time went on, now it's probably almost irrelevant, but in those times you had the siqaya, and it comes in the Quran, siqayat al-haji wa imat al-masjid al-haram. The siqaya is not just to feed somebody or give somebody water to drink, but actually the duty of providing water for the hajj. That was siqaya. So if you just do it as a one-off, that's saqya. When it becomes a hirfa, a profession, a job, then that becomes fi'ala. And that's what we discuss in detail in the next section. So, the rule is, if it's ثلاثي mujarrad, so let's go through here. So you have here, ثلاثي mujarrad. ثلاثي mujarrad, either lazim or muta'addi. And then we have here, غير حرفة, it's not a profession, or it's a profession. Okay, so what's going to happen here? This masdar will be fa'lan. This will be fi'alatan. And that will be discussed as number 2. And lazim will be fu'ulan. Again, it's rule of thumb, it doesn't apply always. Fu'ulan. Okay, so for example, if we look here, he gives a few examples. Jalasa yajlisu julusan. Qa'ada yaqudu qu'udan. Okay? Yes? And now after that, based on this principle, he analyzes one Quranic verse. And he says, look, sadda yasuddu saddan. So sadda yasuddu has a meaning of stopping somebody, or stopping, prevention. But in the Quran, 2 masadir are used of sadda. One is sadda yasuddu saddan, mentioned here. And one masdar is what? Sududan, mentioned there. One is in Surah Baqarah, one is Surah Nisa. So where the masdar sad is mentioned, is that lazim muta'addi? What's that going to be? Muta'addi, referring to stopping other people. So Allah says here, they ask you regarding the sacred months, i.e. Waging war within these months. So Allah says here, now waging war is a very major issue. However, saddun an sabilillah. How to translate this? Stopping others, preventing others from the path of Allah is even worse. So sadda, preventing others. And in Surah An-Nisa, what is mentioned? وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهِ. When it is said to them, come and listen to what God has revealed unto you and to the messenger. What do they say? You will see the munafiqeen يَسُدُّونَ أَنْكَ سُدُودًا. So here, this is not a transitive meaning. This is more of an intransitive and a lazim meaning. There's luzum in this meaning. What does this mean? They refrain. So we can translate this saddun as prevent others. Because sadda yasuddu saddan is muta'addi. And sudud is lazim. You can say here refrain or hold back, turn away, something like this. Any one of these are a better English word. But this is the concept, that they themselves withhold, retract. They don't want to go to the Nabi. Because sadda is what? Muta'addi, and sudud is lazim, according to what he's mentioned here. Was there a question? It is a maf'ul mutlaq, correct. But that maf'ul mutlaq shows you the meaning of sadda yasuddu. Is it the lazim sadda yasuddu? So the question was, when sudud is maf'ul mutlaq, you don't translate maf'ul mutlaq, it's there for emphasis. But we say this maf'ul mutlaq, along with being for emphasis, it clarifies the meaning of yasuddu. Because when you have yasuddu on its own, it can be a lazim meaning or a muta'addi meaning, a transitive or intransitive meaning. When the sudud and masdar is used, it does create emphasis, but it also clarifies that the yasuddu here is not muta'addi, is actually lazim. Do you understand? So the sudud will help us determine the meaning of yasudduna. And this saddun, well, it's translated on its own individually. Does that clarify your question? Okay. Okay? Yeah. Yes? And that's a Quran example. And he gives a few other examples here. So we were discussing the verb waqafa. So waqafa, again, wuquf and waqf. So when you have wuquf, is that you say waqaftu bil makan wuqufan. So instead of, you say here, to stand. Yes? Khilaf al-julus. When you stand somewhere, the masdar is wuquf, lazim. That person himself stood. And when you say waqaftu dabbata waqfan, you stop something else. So in qira'ah you do waqf, and you stop the qira'ah. And wuquf, when you do wuquf bil arafa, you stay in that place. Waqaftu bil makan. So this, again, you have waqf and wuquf. Both are, the word waqafa is ثلاثي mujarrad. The muta'addi form is waqfan, and the lazim form is wuquf. Yes? Understood? Now the last point he mentions here is very important. He says here, this is a general rule. This doesn't apply all the time. It's a general rule. There are some masadir which have what? Fu'ul meaning, but they are what? Muta'addi. For example, you have lazima. Lazimahu luzuman. So you have a maf'ul, yet it is luzum. Similarly, you have the word wurud. Lamma warada ma'a madyana. So he came to the water of Madyan. So warada yaridu wurudan. Wardan is not a masdar. Jahada yajhadu. Jahadu biha wastayqanatha anfusuhum. So jahada is to reject. And juhud is a masdar. So you have a maf'ul bihi. Yet is coming in front of fu'ul. He's emphasizing the point here that it's a rule of thumb. The fa'lan and fu'ulan, the muta'addi lazim theory, is a general theory. It's not applied across the board. Another example of this you have in the Quran is, for example, وَلَا يَمْلِكُونَ مَوْتًا وَلَا حَيَاةً وَلَا نُشُورًا. Nushura is resurrection, so Allah will resurrect them. So nashara yanshuru, yanshuruhum. And the masdar is still nushura. So you can have both usages. But this is a few exemptions. But the other one is a rule of thumb which will help you get by in a lot of places. Understood? So that's the fa'alan and fu'ulan masdar. the usage of فعلا and فعولا. Okay? Understood? Yes? Okay. Should we go ahead? Should we stop? We stop it today, inshallah. Subhanallah, bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Any questions? Musab, following? Yeah, if is it useful? It's a lot of information to take in, but it's good to have these notes in the back of your mind. It's useful, especially when doing more, we're studying the Quran, and also then thereafter studying literature and poetry and hadith, etc. It gives you a better idea of translation and usage of the words. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Correct. They don't have a fa'lan pattern. Okay. So usually the muta'addi will be in fa'lan and a lazim with fu'ulan. Some verbs will have both, and because of this. But some of them, they have a fu'ul even though they're muta'addi, because there's no fa'al for them.